No credits when it opens. No soft piano music. Only the buzz of fluorescent courtroom light and the hard echo of heels on old wooden floors. Christine walked into the courtroom with something the world had grown familiar with, a blue binder. But this time not the original alone. This time it was thicker, blown up, fortified by color, coded tabs, legal stamps, and something harder than bitterness. Evidence. Kody sat rigidly at the defense table, hands clasped, lips compressed, with an attorney who resembled a crisis manager, rather than a litigator on either side. Robyn sat next to him, but one row back, as if even she didn't want to be at the front of this breakdown. The courtroom seemed smaller this time. Not that it was, but power had moved, and everyone could sense it. The judge looked down over the rim of his glasses. "We are present to hear closing arguments about custodial split and property demands between Mr. Brown and Christine," he said in a smooth voice. "Mrs. Brown, do you have any other documents?" Christine stood up with no hesitation. "Yes, Your Honor," she declared, steady voice, binder clutched tightly like a sword waiting to be drawn. She gave it to the clerk. "Everything we went over is in here, and more, including evidence of financial hiding, coercive control, and a 2014 custody order Kody asked me to sign, and then pretended never happened." And in an instant, the courtroom shifted. What was going to be a simple closing had become something eruptive. Kody fidgeted in his seat, his face sweaty. "She is inventing this," he grumbled. Christine shifted her head ever so slightly, but her eyes didn't flutter. "You instructed me to sign that contract in front of our counselor," she spoke. "I was afraid, and you knew I was, but I made a copy. You didn't realize I scanned it and sent one to my sister, just in case." Robyn's breath snagged, almost silent, but enough for the room to hear. The judge cleared his throat. "We'll take a 5-minute recess while I scan the contents of this binder," he said. Christine folded her hands. Kody stood over to whisper something into his lawyer's ear, but the lawyer didn't answer. He just looked at the binder as if it had suddenly become a bomb. And in a way, it had. The recess that followed wasn't calm. It was precise. Christine remained still, while the judge riffled through the binder, the rustle of paper the only noise in the room. Kody shifted, his jaw locked so hard his neck quivered. The attorney next to him whispered, "You didn't share this custody draft with me?" Kody didn't respond. He just looked straight ahead, not at Christine. But Christine didn't require that he look. She'd existed for years in the silence of his evasion. The judge frowned. "Mrs. Brown," he started deliberately, "this 2014 draft contract, you say Mr. Brown requested you sign this in private?" Christine rose. "Yes, Your Honor, in the counselor's office. No witnesses other than the counselor. But I didn't merely sign it, I made a copy." She faced Kody, as unyielding as a glacier. "You promised me it would make parenting easier if things ever got out of hand. Then you abandoned the paper and refused to admit you wrote it for 9 years. Kody blanched. Robyn appeared as though she wished she could disappear. The courtroom didn't budge. Even the court clerk's fingers had ceased moving. The judge went on. "This paper gives you sole legal custody in case of separation. Joint physical custody could only be negotiated if Mr. Brown filed legal guardianship and primary residence proof. He never did file those, right?" Christine nodded. "Right, Your Honor, and the document is signed and time-stamped." She showed her phone. "I also have the email from the therapist saying that she watched us go over it." Kody got up finally. "I want to make it very clear that I never thought of this as binding. It was an emotional conversation, not a legal agreement." The judge narrowed his eyes. "Mr. Brown, your signature is here, and unless you're stating this was forged—" "No," Kody interrupted quickly. "I'm not accusing her of forgery." "Then it is admissible," the judge said plainly. Christine didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The paper cried out more loudly than any courtroom tantrum ever had. Robyn breathed softly. "Why didn't you tell me about that deal?" Kody did not answer. He just slumped back in his chair as the judge went on. "In addition, this binder contains property records from the Flagstaff compound. Mrs. Brown, can you account for why there was a difference between what was publicly posted and what was privately transferred?" Christine stood again. "Yes. In 2021, Kody transferred the property deed into an LLC in Robyn's maiden name. He indicated to the family that it was for tax purposes, but the deed eliminated all of the other spouses, including me. The judge appeared shocked. And this transfer was completed after you broke up? Yes. He waited until after I left, and then altered the ownership trail. The judge tapped his pen twice. The noise rang out like a gavel. Then, Mr. Brown, the court is willing to look at concealment of assets. Mrs. Brown, the judge had said softly, if your testimony holds, then Mr. Brown no longer has legal control over anything, and in that instant Kody didn't seem like a husband or even a father. He resembled a man who suddenly understood his kingdom was founded on quicksand. The judge pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, leaned forward and pulled open the tab labeled 2021. Christine observed him like a woman who'd practiced this moment in her mind 1,000 times. It wasn't revenge, it was revelation. What was revealed in the tab section was scanned emails, escrow records, and notary logs. Every page detailed the movement of a community Flagstaff lot, initially bought under family trust, took place unbeknownst to anyone into a secret shell LLC. That LLC, the documents claimed, was run by Robyn Brown exclusively. Kody finally spoke. We said it was temporary, until the taxes were resolved. Christine left the family. She walked away. What was she expecting me to do? Christine stood. Did you not inform anyone you were transferring the property? Not me, not Janelle, not Mary, and you did it after you suspended our access to the joint bank account. The courtroom was on edge. The judge looked up at the paper. Mrs. Brown, you are claiming your name was taken off of the family account without notice, yes? In January of 2022, the same week the deed switched. Kody interrupted. It was a mad time. We were breaking up. I was defending what remained. You were amassing, Christine replied. And I have evidence. She dug into her bag and produced a flash drive. The moment seemed like a movie. Everyone sensed the change. Christine presented it to the clerk. Your Honor, this is a recording of a phone call that I had with our financial advisor. I called to ask about my access being taken away. The advisor said Kody and Robyn were the only ones with authorization as of the 3rd of January. The judge motioned to the technician. Play it. The room was filled with the unmistakable ring of a speakerphone. Christine's voice came first, strained but smooth. Hello, I am only trying to figure out why I am unable to log into our shared account. The advisor's voice replied. Hi, Christine. Since this month, your access was revoked according to internal authorization. I am not able to share the reasons unless both account owners are with me. Kody stared at his lap. The judge stopped playback. Mr. Brown, did you authorize this modification? Kody didn't reply. The judge again repeated himself. Did you cut off financial access to Mrs. Brown when she was still a legal trustee of the family account? Kody finally stood up. Yes, he breathed, but I had a reason. And what was the reason? The judge inquired. She left. She was still your legal wife at the time of the transfer, the judge responded icily. This court now has reasons to investigate fiduciary misconduct. Christine sat, drawing slow breaths. The sentences hung heavy, but not nearly as heavy as the years they totaled. In that one instant, the courtroom witnessed it, not simply a mother defending her children or a wife reclaiming herself. They witnessed a woman who had been erased monetarily silently, methodically, while the world watched their family on television, and described it as love. And now, the judge was no longer simply presiding over a divorce case. He was probing a collapse. A lie at a time, a login at a time, a tab on the binder at a time. When the flash drive was plugged in and sealed into evidence, the courtroom wasn't merely silent. It was chilling. Kody's silence was more eloquent than any tantrum could have been. The judge signaled to continue, turning now to the tab labeled Custody, Pre-Separation. It was packed with school reports, medical visit records, and travel permits, each signed exclusively by Christine, each establishing one incontestable fact. Kody had not been a participating parent for years. The judge fixed him with a direct stare. Mr. Brown, how frequently did you live with your minor children during the 18 months prior to this filing? Kody hesitated, then glanced at his lawyer. I did have visitations, but I was also taking care of other family obligations. Can you provide documentation? No, Kody grumbled. Christine stood. Your Honor, I can provide a calendar that indicates he hasn't shown up to a single pediatric appointment or school meeting since March of 2020. She moved closer, retrieving a second document from her binder. It was a printed screenshot. Her and Kody's group text, unread, unopened, dated more than a year ago. This is when Truly had a fever of 104, I told him. He never responded. Robyn put her hand over her mouth. Janelle and Mary weren't in the room, but you felt like they were their absence sounding louder than presence ever could. The judge shifted in his seat. So, you are claiming Mr. Brown was not actively involved in everyday parenting 2 years in a row. Unless you count never received phone calls, Christine replied, her voice shaking but barely. Then, as if being drawn to gravity or conscience, Kody finally broke his silence. Not loudly, not boastfully, but like a man disintegrating. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to be a father to children who didn't share the same roof. The judge replied flatly. Mr. Brown, that is the reality of joint custody, not a reason to lose it. Then Christine did something nobody anticipated. She proceeded to the middle of the courtroom and retrieved a folded paper from her pocket. This, she said, is a list written by my daughter the evening that she heard Kody and Robyn talking. She gave it to the clerk. The judge read it out. If she leaves, we cut her out. No more help, no more coverage, no more sharing. She decided this, so let her pay. The judge's eyes fluttered in surprise. Whose voice is this speaking of? Christine remained silent. She didn't have to. Everyone already knew. Kody's face constricted like a rope tightening around something he couldn't any longer deny. The courtroom no longer witnessed a father who battled for his family. They witnessed a man struggling to defend a picture that no longer was. Also now, the only decision remaining was not whether Christine would gain custody, but how much more the court would give her in exchange. The judge set the crumpled note aside and indicated the next exhibit. Christine didn't delay. She reached into her binder and pulled out a sheet of paper with a document sealed in a plastic sleeve. An email printed out, dated the 14th of April, 2021. This, she asserted, is what changed everything for me. She showed it to the court clerk. It is from Kody's financial planner, by mistake. It was addressed to him. It was CC'd to me because I was still on one of the LLCs, and what I read sickened me. The judge put on a pair of reading glasses and started reading in a low, soothing voice. As agreed upon at our last meeting, reorganization of the Coyote Pass asset tree needs to be completed prior to Christine's filing. Robyn is still the best beneficiary as a result of her credit score as well as legal access. The draft agreement omits Christine and Janelle per your instruction. The room went still. Kody leaned forward, his voice low and defensive. That was a planning document. It wasn't executed. It wasn't. The judge raised a hand. Is your name listed as the party instructing these omissions? Kody swallowed. Undefined, yes. Undefined, but it was just strategy. Christine didn't flinch. Undefined, you told me you were protecting our assets for the kids. Undefined, you lied. You were sending everything to Robyn behind our backs. Robyn looked at the desk in front of her, not moving. Undefined it not, even blinking. The judge flipped over the email. There is a second page here, a sentence that says, make sure Christine's post-separation paperwork is digitally cleaned before transfer. Kody's mouth fell open, but he made no sound. Undefined, would you like to explain that? Undefined, the judge asked. I didn't write it. It was the planner's testimony. And yet you never stopped him, Christine responded. Her tone gentle but weighty. That was when the court no longer saw Kody Brown as irresponsible, but started seeing him as calculated. The judge jotted a note on his pad. Undefined, this corresponds with the revocation of access from the joint account, the unauthorized transfers of deeds, and the neglect of custody already proven. This is not a question of separation anymore. Undefined, it is a question of erasure by design. Kody's lawyer stood. Your Honor, I need to object to the framing. Your client utilized corporate structures to divert marital assets and gaslit his wife into believing it was for the kids. You can sit down, the judge barked. Christine, however, stood a little taller and pulled out a final document from her binder for this meeting. And here, she said, handing it forward, is the 2015 letter Kody wrote me. The one he forgot I still had. Undefined in it, He promised me the Flagstaff house would be in my name within 3 years. That never came to pass. The judge read it quietly, then slowly nodded. This court now has reason to grant full custodial responsibility to Mrs. Brown and move forward with examining asset reassignment. And in a move that didn't just take away credibility from Kody, but started the process of taking away everything he once had control of. The court moved forward. The courtroom no longer had the scent of cedar and paper. It had the scent of unraveling power, the kind that had reigned quietly for decades, and now rested exposed in fluorescent light. Kody sat still, his shoulders hunched in a way that no longer seemed like defiance, but defeat. And Christine? She wasn't smug. She wasn't smiling. She just sat in the room like a woman who'd already grieved the loss, already weathered the aftermath, and now just had to ensure the truth found its way onto the record. The judge raised the binder again, now facing the tab labeled Custodial Clauses Fee Supplemental. Within were signed letters from 2 principals at the school, attesting that Christine was the exclusive emergency contact for her minor children for 4 years. Medical consent forms only had her name on them. Therapist intake forms for Jezebel, and truly verified Kody never had a single session. "Mr. Brown," the judge inquired, "can you tell me why your name is on not a single parenting-related document since 2019? Kody cleared his throat. "I was taking care of the other children? The older ones. The pandemic made it more difficult to travel. Christine wasn't so much inviting me into their world." Christine's response was cool, biting. "I invited you to come. You didn't." She pulled out a photo, a printed screenshot of a text conversation. "Dad, are you going to come to the parent night?" No reply then. Another message. "I wish you'd just show up, even if it is uncomfortable." No reply. Christine clutched it in her hand. "That is truly." She wept when he did not answer. The judge breathed. "It is obvious that this court cannot grant custody to a parent who has relinquished involvement so utterly." Kody attempted to say something, but the words would not come, because there was no spin left, no performance to give for. The cameras were not rolling. The family brand was not there to shield him now. And then things got worse. Christine pulled out of the binder one last time that day and pulled out one yellow envelope. "This," she explained, "was sent to me anonymously 2 weeks ago. I had it authenticated." She gave it to the clerk. The judge took the contents, a 1-page document so labeled, "Private Property Transfer Fee Robyn Brown LLC." At the bottom, signed by Kody Brown, but the date the 4th of February 2023, well after they separated, well after depositions had commenced. "Mr. Brown," the judge demanded, voice now stern, "were you still transferring marital property during the time this court had issued the temporary asset freeze?" Kody blinked. "I didn't think it applied to LLC transfers." "It did," the judge replied, "and now you violated a standing court order, and that's when it changed." Not with yelling, not with drama, but with a single sentence from the bench. Effective immediately, the judge said, Kody Brown is stripped of decision, making control over any shared marital property. Custody is awarded in full to Christine Brown. The court is taking steps to take over all known assets for investigation. Robyn put her hand over her mouth. Christine snapped her binder shut. Kody seemed like a man who just understood control was never a birthright. It was borrowed, and the loan had expired. It didn't come with a gavel slam. It didn't arrive with screaming. The silence following the judge's words was somehow more brutal than any blast. Kody's shoulders sank an inch lower. Robyn leaned back like her body had been pushed by the words themselves. And Christine, she exhaled, a breath held for more than a decade. A breath tied to every dismissed concern, every erased voice, every quiet insult wrapped in spiritual manipulation. The judge tapped the folder lightly. "I will be issuing a written order within 24 hours, but the oral ruling stands. Mrs. Brown is the only legal guardian of her minor children now. All disputed property will be put on hold until a forensic accounting is finalized." And then he turned to stare at Kody. "You no longer control any joint family asset. You in that one sentence took away the power structure that created an empire, on tape and off. By its very dismantling, Kody's lawyer leaned in. "We can file for reconsideration," he whispered. Kody didn't move. He wasn't listening to the law anymore. He was still attempting to wrap his head around what had just exited him. The delusion of power, the version of himself that had brought him this far untouched and unopposed. Now, the room was no longer revolving around him. Indeed, it wasn't even gazing at him. The judge shifted to Christine. "Do you have anything further for the record?" She stood slowly, reached into her binder one final time, and produced a photograph. A simple one, just a snapshot of her daughter sitting on a porch, barefoot, eating watermelon, laughing. "Only this," she said. "This is what I'm protecting. Not assets, not revenge, just this moment, their future." The judge nodded. Noted. And just like that, Kody Brown became invisible. The man who'd been at the center of the Sister Wives universe for more than a decade. The decision maker, the husband, the patriarch, was no longer part of the equation. Legally, financially, parentally. Gone, not erased. But finally made to account. Robyn finally broke her silence. She spoke softly. "So what now?" she whispered. Christine gazed at her, but not unkindly. "Now?" she replied. "Now you understand what it is like to be left out of the plan. Because the truth was never in the binder. It was in the omission of Kody's name from all that mattered, and the court finally did too." The judge stood. "Court will recess until post-verdict compliance review." As he stepped off the bench, Christine collected her binder. Not like a trophy, but like a shield she no longer needed to wield. Kody remained motionless, for the first time in his public career. No one required him to. The courtroom drained slowly like a death procession everyone was reluctant to witness. Reporters in the back row jotted down headlines, but even they were subdued. The tone had changed, not only against Kody, but against the whole mythos he had created. For years he'd been dictating a public narrative, one man, 4 wives, and divine plan. But today, the court pulled the veil off of that illusion with surgical acuity. What was left in its wake wasn't merely a man who lacked control. It was a woman who now possessed the power of her own narrative. As Christine walked into the corridor, her lawyer standing beside her, a silence trailed behind her like a cloud. Reporters did not yell questions. Cameras did not flash. Even the courthouse employees averted their faces, as if the walls themselves honored what had transpired. Within the courtroom, Robyn stayed behind, her eyes unfocused, her shoulders slumped. "Kody," she whispered, "you said that we were protected." Kody didn't reply. His lips moved, but there was no sound. The man who once prided himself on his power, who defined discipline as spiritual leadership, was now a statue in his own devastation. Robyn addressed the judge's clerk, her voice breaking. "There is nothing we can do. Nothing at all." The clerk said nothing, because the court had already decided. And it hadn't merely taken away custody or possessions from Kody. It had taken away from him the privilege of consequence, free authority. Robyn sobbed. The kind of sobbing that wasn't theatrics, it was empty. She cried over the fantasy of being the chosen one, over the delusion she'd be the exception. And now, there was no longer a throne to be split. Outside, Christine didn't sob. She moved steadily towards her car. Her lawyer gave her the formal file copy of the verdict. "Congratulations," he said. Christine glanced down at it, then up at the sky. "It is not a win," she said. "It is a restoration." And then the camera would shift to Kody, remaining in the courtroom, looking at the empty space Christine once occupied, the space that had previously operated around him, the space he never imagined that he could lose. The judge's aide appeared briefly to deliver to him an envelope, a formal request to attend a separate deposition concerning possible civil sanctions for disobedience of the asset freeze order. Kody didn't even open it, because when Christine left him, she didn't just walk away from him, she walked away from the version of him who never believed this day would arrive. And now the man who used to say he ruled 4 wives with heavenly order couldn't even rule his own legacy. Christine put the binder in the passenger seat as if it finally deserved some peace. This wasn't about winning property or custody. This was about reclaiming voice, value, and visibility, in a world that instructed her to trade them away in the name of spiritual order. And for the first time in years, she did not feel like one of 4. She felt whole. By morning, the ruling had gone viral. Headlines blared on entertainment websites and regional news. Christine Brown gets full custody and property rights. Court freezes Kody's assets. But backstage, the worst blow of all hadn't yet been televised. That arrived when Christine's attorneys filed the petition to cut Kody's rights to the Coyote Pass land entirely. Land he had referred to as our legacy. It wasn't about cash or legal lines. Coyote Pass had always represented Kody's symbol of dominance. He fantasized on national television about constructing a family compound there. One house, one kingdom, one patriarchal fantasy. But when Christine left, that dream dissolved, and the court now had the documents to prove it was never legally filed as a shared estate. In chambers, the judge inspected the deeds. So, he said deliberately, flipping through folders, Kody conveyed partial ownership to an LLC after Christine left, but never reported it in marital filings. Christine's lawyer nodded. Right, Your Honor, and he did not report its transfer during the initial divorce hearing. The judge didn't appear angry. He looked disappointed. Later that day, the ruling was updated. Coyote Pass would be split down the middle 50% to Christine, 50% under court, controlled escrow. Kody could no longer make unilateral decisions. He couldn't build, develop, or sell without Christine's written permission. Robyn, upon hearing this, reportedly left the courthouse parking lot in tears. She had moved her children to Arizona with the promise of permanence, only to realize the land was never promised to her in the first place. It was a mirage, just like the marriage. Kody issued a short statement to the press. I'm disappointed. I wanted unity. But the world saw through it. This wasn't about unity. It was about unchecked control, finally challenged and legally dismantled. Christine didn't hold a press conference. She didn't have to. Her silence spoke louder than any counter-argument. And still, she wrote one handwritten letter to the court for the public record. May Coyote Pass finally become a place of peace for my children. That is all I ever wanted. The same land Kody once boasted would unite the family was now the legal proof of how far they'd drifted. Christine's 50% came with actual material rights. Rights to construct, rights to sell, rights to have something in her own name for the first time. Not spirit. Borrowed. Not relationally bargained, but legally hers. She was more than a woman who walked away. She was a woman who stood up, and the court concurred she never should have had to fight for that in the first place. Kody, alone in the house once intended for 4 wives, finally faced what Christine knew all along. Control is not commitment. 3 days after the courtroom decision, Christine's attorneys filed one last document, a forensic addendum from their private auditor, a spreadsheet named Unaccounted Funds Faye Brown Family Trust. It wasn't sensational, it wasn't even highlighted, it was cold, exact, and incriminating. And at the very top, dated a mere 6 months prior to the trial, was one deposit, $147,000 taken and redirected into an account named RB Holdings LLC, Robyn's initials, Robyn's digital signature, Robyn's name. The ledger didn't merely record a transaction. It revealed how funds meant for family, wide expenses, school fees, mortgage repayments, car costs, had been quietly siphoned and redirected into a personal holding business. A business Christine, Mary, and Janelle never knew anything about. The name never featured on any of the Sister Wives episodes. It never came up on family Zoom meetings, but there it was, on paper, filed under a tax ID connected to Robyn Brown. When the judge saw it, his expression didn't change, but his ruling did. We now have cause to investigate the misuse of marital trust funds, he announced. A special master will be appointed to review all transactions tied to the RB Holdings account and any LLCs created post-2020. Kody tried to protest. That account was temporary. We simply had to, Christine interrupted, serene and deadly. You didn't need anything. You wanted to keep it secret. You just never thought I'd be smart enough to find the receipt. And that is when Robyn erred in attempting to justify herself. She stood, shaking, and declared that money was going to provide a safe home for my children. The rest of you didn't get what we were attempting to do, the judge responded promptly. What you were attempting to do was redirect monies from a common trust into a personal haven. That is not sacred stewardship. It is financial segregation. The room chilled. Kody grasped for Robyn's hand, but this time she pulled away. For the first time, even Robyn got it, that this was not going to be resolved with tears. Christine didn't move. She didn't smirk. She didn't gloat. She produced a last envelope from her bag. "These," she said, "are emails from the family accountant, asking for verification of the RB Holdings account. I never saw these. Neither did Janelle. Only Robyn and Kody responded. She handed them in. No more drama. No more accumulation. Evidence only." Just like Robyn's name became associated with something beyond feelings and partiality, it became associated with a paper trail undefended that could mean actual consequences. The court put the results into the official file and arranged for a civil financial audit for the next quarter. Undefined Christine did not celebrate. Undefined she merely mouthed to her lawyer, "That is the last receipt. The final one I required." Kody sat immobile. As the understanding dawdled, Christine didn't merely leave him, she outsmarted him. Undefined did not in hostility cold indifference. Is defined out of necessity. Undefined out of at long last having enough. When the court clerk stamped the RB Holdings ledger into evidence, the concern was no longer whether Kody would lose control. It was now a matter of what else would fall apart before the dust settled. Christine had spent a decade documenting receipts, papers, quiet betrayals, and discrepancies in finance, not to kill Kody, but because she knew eventually she'd have to show the hurt he didn't want to see. And today was that day. The court ordered a forensic master to start a complete review of the Brown family's real estate transactions, LLC revenue streams, and trust withdrawals since 2017. The last report from the forensic auditor, due to be released sometime in the next few months, might lead to civil penalties. If the report supports the abuse of the trust funds, Kody and Robyn might face financial misconduct charges. But Christine didn't appear eager to pursue it further. She said to her lawyer, "The court gave me what I needed. Now I desire peace." She didn't seek revenge, she reclaimed her narrative, and now the one wife who was informed she was too much had demonstrated she was enough the entire time. As Christine strolled across her front yard that night, now rightfully hers, the sun illuminated the trees in a manner it hadn't previously. Not because the sky itself changed, but because she was able to see it for the first time. No more waiting, no more permission. Nothing but her children, and the life she constructed from the ashes of a mutual delusion. She never had to have a court tell her that her truth was true, but that it did so. Undefined was justice, real, legal, public justice, and for the first time in years, Kody Brown had no say in the matter.